You know, if you've ever tried to lose weight, you probably know the cycle, right? You diet, you exercise, you see the numbers on the scale go down, and then, well, slowly but surely it all seems to creep back. It's an incredibly common and, let's be honest, super frustrating journey. So why does that finish line so often feel like a revolving door? Let's get into it.
It is such a common problem. You put in all the work, you follow all the rules, but that long-term success just feels out of reach. So today, we're going to break down the science of not just how to lose weight, but the part everyone forgets to talk about, how to actually keep it off.
All right, so before we get into the really complex stuff, the long-term success part, we have to start at square one. At its core, all weight loss, no matter the diet, begins with one simple, fundamental equation.
And here it is. This is the non-negotiable law of weight loss. You need a caloric deficit. The best way to think about it is like your body is a car. If you don't give it enough fuel from food, it has no choice but to tap into its reserve tank. And guess what that reserve tank is? It's the stored fat you're trying to lose.
That's it. That's the whole game. It doesn't matter if you're doing keto or you're vegan or paleo, you name it, they are all just different roadmaps trying to get you to the exact same destination. They all just structure your eating in a way that helps you take in fewer calories than your body burns every day.
So to put a number on it, a really common target you'll see in a lot of plans is right around 1,200 calories a day. But here's where the magic really happens. It's when you combine your diet with exercise. You create that initial gap with your food, and then you make that gap even bigger by burning an extra 300 to 500 calories through some kind of activity.
Okay, so we know we need that caloric deficit. The question is, how do we actually do it? I mean, there are a million methods out there, but they pretty much all boil down to two main philosophies.
So path number one is all about structure. It's a very clear, rule-based approach. It's super direct. Hit this specific calorie number, move your body, cut out the obvious stuff like a ton of extra salt and sugar, and make sure you're drinking enough water. It's a very straightforward, no-nonsense plan.
And here's what that can actually look like on a plate. This isn't about guesswork, right? It's all about controlling your portions and making specific food choices to land right on that 1,200 calorie target. You've got your lean proteins, lots of veggies, and some carefully measured starches, all planned out for you. Now let's talk about path number two. Instead of meticulously counting every single calorie, this strategy shifts the focus to the type of calories you're eating. Specifically, it's all about prioritizing protein and dialing back the carbohydrates. The whole idea here is that protein is just incredibly filling. It helps you feel full and satisfied, which means you naturally end up eating fewer calories overall, but without having to count every last one. I mean, think about it. A breakfast with 20 or 30 grams of protein, like some Greek yogurt or a protein smoothie, can keep you feeling full for hours. That makes it way easier to stick to that caloric deficit.
All right, we've covered the diet side of things. Let's tackle the other half of the equation: exercise. You know, for years, this debate has been raging in just about every gym. If you want to lose fat, should you be on the treadmill or should you be over at the weight rack?
Let's break this down. Cardio is definitely the king of immediate calorie burn. You go for a 45-minute run, you torch a bunch of calories right then and there. Now, weight training, on the other hand, might burn fewer calories during the actual workout, but, and this is a big but, it builds muscle. And muscle is like your body's metabolic engine. It burns calories all day long, even when you're just sitting on the couch. It basically revs up your metabolism for the long haul.
So, what's the final verdict? Well, a research review from NSU Works puts it perfectly. It says, for optimal fat loss, both weight training and aerobic training should be used. So, it turns out the whole debate is kind of a false choice. The absolute best approach is to do both.
And that brings us to the most important part of this whole discussion. We've talked about how to lose the weight, but you know what? That was actually the easy part. The real challenge, the giant missing piece of the puzzle, is what happens after the diet is over.
So you did it. You hit your goal weight. This should be a celebration. But instead, you're suddenly in the single most difficult phase of the entire process. Why is it so unbelievably hard to just maintain the progress you fought so hard for?
The answer has a name. It's a biological process called metabolic adaptation. And I need you to hear this. This is not a personal failure. It's a survival mechanism. Your body doesn't know you're trying to look good for a vacation. It just thinks you're starving. So to protect you, it gets smarter. It becomes more efficient, learning how to run on fewer and fewer calories by slowing your metabolism way down.
Let me just say that again.
your body is actively fighting back against your goal. By the time you finish a diet, you're left with a slower metabolism and, just to make things even harder, your body is pumping out hormones that make you feel way hungrier than before. It is the absolute perfect storm for regaining weight.
So how in the world do you fight back against your own biology? Well, you can't just jump right back to your old eating habits. That's a recipe for disaster. You need a strategic plan, sometimes called a reverse diet. You very slowly add calories back into your diet. This gives your metabolism a chance to recover and ramp back up without getting overwhelmed and just storing everything as fat. Patience is everything here, and you've got to keep prioritizing foods like protein and fiber to help manage that crazy post-diet hunger.
You see, this completely shifts the conversation. The end of a diet is not the finish line. It's really the starting line for a new, permanent way of living. True success isn't about some 12-week plan. It's about building a whole new lifestyle from the ground up.
And this is what that new lifestyle really looks like. These aren't temporary rules. These are habits for life. And notice how this goes way beyond just food and exercise, right? It's about managing stress, making sleep a priority, having people who support you. These are the real pillars that stop you from ever needing to go on a diet again, and they're what will keep the weight off for good.
So, let's just end with this thought. Is the real goal just to lose weight, or is it to build a completely new life? Maybe our focus on just losing weight is the very thing that sets us up to fail. Maybe the real goal is something so much bigger, to build a healthier, more sustainable life where your goal weight isn't some destination you're struggling to get to, but it's just the natural result of how you live every day.